I find myself drawn to the quiet moments of introspection, where every heartbeat and every breath echo the deep sensitivity of our inner world. In these moments, I reflect on how being sensitive is a rich emotional journey, a journey where the ability to feel deeply can be both a blessing and a challenge. I recall the times when saying no felt like a monumental task, as if each word carried the weight of the world. Picture a soul that trembles at the thought of causing even a small crack in someone else's smile, the heart fluttering at the possibility of disappointing those we cherish. This is the essence of our story today, a story about understanding that our vulnerability does not equate to weakness, but rather to an extraordinary capacity to love deeply and live authentically. In my narrative, I weave together personal reflections and gentle insights, much like Suié González does. I paint a portrait of someone who listens intently to every whispered emotion, their internal radar detecting the slightest hint of discord in any gathering. Amid the lively chatter and warm laughter around them, there remains a quiet, persistent introspection, a steady awareness of the subtle shifts in mood and intention. It feels as if every interaction becomes a delicate dance, where the boundaries between caring and self-neglect blur into a haze of unspoken expectations. As I guide you through these words, I emphasize that sensitivity is not a condition to be cured, but a unique way of engaging with the world. Our hearts open wide, capturing every nuance of joy and sorrow, often at the expense of our personal space. The internal challenge is clear. How do we embrace our emotional depth without sacrificing our well-being in the process? I offer a glimpse into my own experiences, moments when the weight of compassion pressed down. Yet, through these trials, I learned that there is beauty in the act of setting boundaries, that creating safe spaces for ourselves is indeed an act of self-love. This narrative is a celebration of the complex, beautiful nature of sensitivity. It is an invitation to look within and honor every feeling. I share that while the intensity of our emotions may sometimes overwhelm us, they also root us deeply in the fabric of life and human connection. We are capable of nurturing not just others, but also ourselves, by understanding that protecting our space is not an act of isolation, but a means of extra care. In this opening segment, I set the tone by revealing the inner struggles and the gentle triumphs that come with learning to value our own needs, preparing the ground for the many insights that follow in our journey together. Stepping further into the narrative, I delve into the core challenge faced by many sensitive souls: the difficulty of setting personal boundaries while trying to preserve the harmony in relationships. I recall a day painted in soft hues, where the air vibrated with unspoken tensions. In that moment, the desire to help and to be liked merged with an overwhelming fear of rejection. I found myself caught in an internal tug-of-war, torn between honoring my own needs and the perpetual worry that saying no would inflict pain on someone I deeply care about. There was an unmistakable heaviness in my chest, a knot in my stomach that grew with every fleeting thought, what if I hurt them? What if I'm seen as unkind? In the quiet spaces of that day, as I sat alone and observed my emotions, I recognized how this internal conflict slowly transforms into a cycle of exhaustion. This cycle is marked by a relentless pursuit of approval and an incessant need to maintain peace, even when it drains the very life force from within. The struggle is not just about denying requests. It is a battle fought in the realm of guilt, self-doubt, and the fear of being misunderstood. I imagine a room filled with the echoes of kind words and soft laughter, yet inside, a small, sensitive heart is quietly warring with its own limits. I begin to see clearly how this sensitivity creates a stage for internal drama. Every act of kindness becomes laced with anxiety, and every request for help morphs into an overwhelming burden. The irony is unmistakable. In trying so desperately to avoid conflict, one ends up inviting long-term stress, burdening oneself with feelings of resentment and depletion. I describe this inner battle as a dance with invisible partners, one hand reaching out to comfort others and the other holding tight to one's own fragile energy. Yet, amid this internal turmoil, there is a revelation. Boundaries are not hostile walls, but rather gentle fences that help maintain the sanctuary of our inner selves. Recognizing this duality is essential. The very limits that appear as forbidding barriers are in truth pathways to emotional balance. I portray this realization through vivid imagery, a delicate yet firm barrier protecting a lush garden, allowing only nourishing elements to enter while keeping destructive forces at bay. This narrative resonates deeply as it reminds sensitive souls that managing emotional intake is an act of self-respect. Each time this lesson is embraced, the cycle of unchecked compassion gives way to a more sustainable and nurturing way of living. It becomes clear that the challenge of setting boundaries is not a flaw of being sensitive. Rather, it is an intricate and delicate dance that every empathetic soul learns over time. I now move into the heart of our message by sharing practical, heartfelt strategies designed especially for those who navigate life with profound sensitivity. In this unfolding narrative, I recount a transformative moment, a day when clarity arrived like the golden rays of dawn. I stood at a crossroads, recognizing that the path of self-neglect was no longer sustainable. That day, I made an inner vow to treat my own feelings as sacred, understanding that setting boundaries was not merely an act of defense, but one of genuine self-care and love. The journey begins with the simple yet profound practice of recognizing and validating one's emotions. I describe a quiet evening when the sky was painted in soft pastel tones and I sat in solitude, letting the array of emotions wash over me. In that stillness, I learned to distinguish between fear, guilt, and the sincere call for self-preservation. This moment of introspection allowed me to see that emotions are messengers, each with its unique insight, guiding me gently towards decisions that honor my well-being. Recognizing these feelings diminishes their power, making it easier to answer the inner call for a needed pause. Building on this realization, I explain the importance of preparing simple yet effective phrases that convey one's needs clearly. I recall practicing in front of a mirror in a quiet bedroom, where soft light filtered through sheer curtains. There, I rehearsed words like, "I need some time for myself right now," and "I appreciate your request, but I have to say no." These phrases, though short, became powerful affirmations that reinforced my right to self-care. They served as verbal shields, clear and unambiguous, allowing me to communicate my boundaries without feeling overly burdened by explanations or justifications. A significant part of my narrative revolves around the art of differentiating genuine guilt from externally induced guilt. I recount a delicate scene of reflection during a rainy afternoon as I sat by a window, watching the droplets race down the glass. In that moment, I recognized that not every pang of guilt was a sign of wrongdoing. Sometimes it was simply the residue of societal expectations and the pressures to conform. Learning to distinguish between these sources of guilt allowed me to let go of unnecessary self-blame and embrace my right to prioritize my emotional health. Another critical strategy I share is the approach to assertive communication. I picture a serene setting in a small, cozy cafe where soft music plays in the background. As I observed the interactions around me, I recalled a personal experience where a close friend's expectations became overwhelming. In that scenario, I learned to frame my feelings using I statements, a method that subtly shifts the conversation from blame to expression. I remember crafting a sentiment such as, "I feel overwhelmed. When too many demands are placed on me, I need some time to recharge." This approach not only preserved the integrity of my relationship, but also established clear personal limits in a compassionate manner. The narrative continues by encouraging a gradual approach to boundary setting, starting with small, manageable steps. I explain that one need not overhaul their life overnight, but rather begin by asserting minor limits, which over time build into a robust sense of self. Each small step, every little no softly spoken, accumulates into a foundation of confidence, gently reshaping one's emotional landscape. I illustrate this with the metaphor of building a sturdy, yet flexible fence around a cherished garden, where every post and panel is erected with care and intention. As I weave these strategies together, I further highlight how taking care of oneself ultimately strengthens relationships. I share a reflective scene from a recent afternoon when, after a day of gently enforcing my own boundaries, I noticed the subtle shift in the dynamics with those around me. Friends began mirroring the respect I showed myself, creating an environment where mutual care could flourish. I continue by advocating for the benefits of journaling one's feelings, a quiet practice that transforms intense emotions into insights and offers clarity during turbulent times. Moreover, I underline the importance of seeking supportive communities or even professional guidance during the journey of learning to honor one's own needs. Throughout this part of the narrative, I infuse each practical tip with empathy and warmth, ensuring that the essence of self-care shines through. Every strategy is presented not as an impersonal tactic, but as a gentle reminder that our inner world is a delicate treasure. I emphasize that each act of setting a boundary is a reaffirmation of our worth, a declaration that our emotional space is sacred and deserves protection. In this narrative flow, the balance of practical advice and heartfelt storytelling invites all sensitive souls to transform vulnerability into a source of strength, turning every small act of self-respect into a celebration of the vibrant, emotional life within us. As our story gently draws to a close, I reflect on the journey we have traversed, a journey from the overwhelming weight of sensitivity to the empowering act of setting boundaries. In this final chapter, I invite you to see the transformation unfolding within each of us. I recall the inner struggles, the constant pull between the desire to comfort others and the need to care for oneself, and how every carefully chosen no became a stepping stone towards self-respect. The narrative has shown that our deep sensitivity is not a flaw to be hidden, but a vibrant quality that, when managed with love and mindfulness, can lead to a fulfilling, more balanced life. I compare the process of setting boundaries to the nurturing of a small garden. Imagine a gentle fence that encloses a space where every blooming flower and tender leaf is safeguarded from harsh winds. This is your inner world, a sanctuary that flourishes when you allow only that which nourishes your spirit to enter. Embracing this truth is an act of profound self-love, a gift you give yourself and, by extension, everyone around you. I recall how, with each small step of asserting my needs, the overwhelming tide of guilt receded, leaving behind a clearer path paved with confidence and renewed energy. In this reflective moment, I encourage you to cherish every experience along this journey. Every time you choose to protect your emotional space, you honor your sensitivity, transforming it from a perceived weakness into an invaluable strength. What you have learned is that true connection begins with respecting your own boundaries. While vulnerability may feel like a double-edged sword, it is ultimately the source of your brilliance, enabling you to engage with life on a deeper and more authentic level. I close this narrative by inviting you to take a quiet moment for self-reflection. Recognize the power in every gentle no as it builds the loving foundation of your personal sanctuary. The journey of embracing self-love through boundaries is continuous, filled with small victories that accumulate into lasting change. May you walk forward with the understanding that your sensitivity is a testament to your capacity to feel, to love, and to thrive.